let me tell you something about silence in a world that never stops speaking. It isn't emptiness. It isn't withdrawal. It isn't the absence of a voice. It is something far more complex, far more intentional, and far more revealing than most people ever notice. And before we go any further, I want to ask you a question, one that might feel surprisingly personal. Have you ever wondered why? Why some people move through the digital world like ghosts, present in every space yet never leaving a single trace of themselves behind? It seems simple on the surface. Maybe they're private, introverted, uninterested, or simply too busy to document their lives. But the truth is that silence, especially on social media, carries a depth that most never think to explore. In a culture where visibility has become a measure of relevance, the decision not to be seen is not random and certainly not meaningless. It is a window into a different kind of psychology, one shaped by introspection, emotional protection, and an understanding of authenticity that does not require an audience. We live inside a digital environment that encourages constant self-presentation, a place where moments are packaged for consumption, where thoughts must be transformed into captions, and where emotions are measured in engagement metrics. The individuals who choose not to post are not rejecting technology. They are resisting the requirement to perform themselves. Their silence is not an absence of expression, but a refusal to let their identity be filtered through the gaze of strangers. Psychologists talk about self-presentational pressure, the subtle but constant awareness that anything you reveal publicly becomes material for judgment, comparison, or misinterpretation. In the online world, that pressure expands until it infiltrates every corner of your life, turning even the smallest moments into potential content. For many people who avoid posting, this sense of being continuously evaluated feels exhausting and intrusive. As though their life is always being watched through an invisible lens, silence becomes a way of stepping outside of that lens, reclaiming a space where their experiences remain untouched by performance. But this is only one layer of the story. Another lies in the deeper emotional reality of psychological ownership, the understanding that certain moments are meant to be lived rather than displayed. People who choose not to post intuitively recognize that the moment an experience is shared online, it transforms. It becomes public property, open to commentary and interpretation. The memory loses a sliver of its intimacy when exposed to the world. Silence, then, becomes a form of protection, a quiet honoring of the significance of private experience, a way of saying, "This is mine, and it does not need to be shared to matter." What makes this even more interesting is that for many silent observers, the reluctance to post does not originate in adulthood, but in childhood. People who grew up learning to hide their emotions, to minimize their presence, or to maintain peace by withholding their true selves, often carry these patterns into their digital lives. For them, visibility does not equal empowerment. It equals vulnerability. The child who learned to keep their feelings tucked away becomes the adult who instinctively guards their inner world. Their silence is a familiar protection, an old instinct reactivated by new technology. And yet, not all silence is born from fear or past wounds. Some individuals experience the digital environment too intensely, absorbing the emotional pressure, social comparisons, and constant noise in a way that others do not. Their sensitivity makes posting feel like an emotional risk, not because they fear judgment, but because their perception is too nuanced to be compressed into a square image or a short caption. They feel the weight of exposure more than others do, and instead of forcing themselves to adapt to this pressure, they choose to remove themselves from it entirely, allowing their inner world to remain theirs alone. Regardless of the origin, the outcome is often the same. Those who do not post develop a deeper, more grounded relationship with themselves. Without the impulse to turn every moment into content, they learn to experience life directly rather than through a performative filter. They notice details that others miss. They think more fully. They feel more completely. Their identity forms from the inside outward rather than being shaped by external validation. This internal orientation is a rare psychological strength in a world increasingly driven by approval and visibility. However, choosing not to post does not mean living without doubt. There are moments when these individuals wonder whether their quietness makes them disappear in the eyes of others, whether relationships weaken without the digital reminders that so many friendships rely on, whether their silence is interpreted as distance or disinterest. These moments can create a tension between the desire for privacy and the longing for connection. Yet, over time, many discover something quietly liberating. The people who truly care will reach out without needing an update. They will check on you without requiring a post to remind them of your existence. The relationships that matter do not rely on visibility to survive. People who do not post often carry stories far richer than their profiles reveal. They may be deeply emotional, quietly humorous, observant in ways that surprise, or reflective in ways that don't translate into the simplified language of social media. They share themselves willingly with a chosen few, offering depth that would be lost if broadcast to the masses. Psychologists describe this as selective vulnerability, the decision to reveal oneself only in spaces where true safety exists. This is not avoidance, but emotional intelligence, an understanding that intimacy is precious and should be offered with intention. Over time, these quiet individuals begin to see the world differently. They learn that documenting life often dilutes it, that the desire to capture a moment for an audience removes them from the moment itself. They recognize how easily validation becomes addictive, how quickly comparison erodes self-worth, and how effortlessly authenticity slips away when constantly shaped for public display. Their silence is not withdrawal, but clarity, the recognition that the richest experiences cannot survive the compression required for online consumption. There are moments when they may feel adrift, as though the world is moving forward without them, as though silence isolates them from a community built on constant sharing. But then a deeper truth emerges. Being unseen is not the same as being insignificant. Quietness is not emptiness. Privacy is not detachment. Their value does not diminish simply because it is not advertised. The psychology of people who do not post reveals something deeply human, the longing to maintain a self separate from the eyes of the world. It shows an understanding that identity is not strengthened by attention, but by self-awareness, that meaning is not created through performance, but through presence, and that some parts of life become more beautiful when allowed to remain untouched. What these individuals often rediscover is the joy of moments that belong solely to them. They feel the warmth of laughter that is not recorded, the weight of emotions that are not translated into captions, and the comfort of knowing that some parts of their life exist only in memory, not in archives. Their silence becomes a sanctuary where they can breathe without being observed, think without being corrected, and feel without being measured. And perhaps the most powerful realization comes quietly, almost unnoticed. The decision not to post is not a rejection of connection, but a return to the kind of connection that feels real. It is a choice to invest in relationships that do not require proof, to live in moments that do not need validation, and to define themselves without the constant reflection of strangers. So, the next time you see someone who never posts, who never shares, who seems invisible in a world obsessed with visibility, consider the possibility that their silence is not a lack of expression, but the truest expression of who they are. They might be living more fully, feeling more deeply, and understanding the world in ways that only quietness can reveal. And their choice may be a reminder, gentle and subtle, that not everything meaningful in life needs to be witnessed to be real. If this spoke to you in any way, take a moment to join this space. Subscribe, leave a thought in the comments, or simply be here the next time you need a voice that feels like clarity. Your presence here matters more than any algorithm ever could.